Welcome back, Claire Hurst, to the Total Therapy Training Podcast. You're back again in our women's health section. And this time, last time we spoke about menopause and it was amazing. So much great information in there. But this time we're going to talk about periods from sort of when we start them all the way up to menopause. So how are you today, Claire?
I'm good. I'm really good. Thanks for having me back.
Excellent. I'm so excited because it was so lovely last time. I know the sound was a little bit off because of the room that I was in, so I sounded really quiet. But hopefully this time it'll be a lot better so we can hear what we're saying. But yeah, so excited to do this. So then, right, our first question. Please educate us about our cycles. What is normal and what isn't?
Yeah, I think this is such a great question to start, by the way, because I think everyone has a different normal.
Right.
And I think what's really interesting is, and I'm sure you remember, whenever you did sex education at school, whenever we got talked to about our periods, it was literally just this period of bleeding that we were talked about, the menstruation phase. And so what I think I want to do just to start with is actually to say, look, the actual bleeding phase is only it's only 1/4 of what is a really important menstrual cycle in women. Wow. That to talk about periods without explaining all the other stages and phases wouldn't make sense, because as you know, in Chinese medicine, we're totally holistic. We don't often view things in isolation at all. So the menstrual cycle, which is whatever that length is for a woman, usually somewhere, around a month, days on either side of that, is very much based on yin and yang energies, like all Chinese medicine. These are constantly changing and acting upon each other at different phases within the menstrual cycle. And so as soon as there is an imbalance in any of those cycles and phases in the cycle, it can create imbalance. So sometimes somebody might have period problems that are actually related to a completely different stage of the menstrual cycle. Right. So there's 4 phases. So we'll start with the bleeding phase, the menstrual phase, the one that we're all really fairly familiar about. This is the one that we kind of understand, that we were taught about, that we're given sanitary wear about. It's fine. So basically, for what happens is, we bleed because the uterus has shed its lining, because there's no embryo. We're not pregnant. At this same time, last time, I don't know if you remember, we talked about these amazing meridians, the Chong and the Ren. They also empty at the same time. So this is the phase in the cycle where the heavenly waters, as we refer to them in Chinese medicine, the uterus lining is coming away and hormones start to drop, particularly progesterone and estrogen, that we spoke about in the menopause podcast. So what happens then is these prostaglandins in the brain are released, and the uterus goes, oh, hang on a minute, there is no embryo. And so it starts to contract. It sheds its lining, and the blood and tissues of the uterus travel out through the vagina. So that's one stage.
Okay.
The next stage, straight after bleeding, is you've got the follicular phase. So this is when yin is increasing. Yin, if you remember, is that nurturing, warming sort of part of the balance, and yang is decreasing. The yang energy, that power, that energy that was needed to flush the blood out and make sure that we have a healthy bleed, is decreasing. So the yin energy is coming in to nourish the blood. We need an abundance of yin at this stage so that the uterus can sort of rebuild, nourish, and that the Ren and the Chong can start to fill up again. Right. So estrogen's starting to rise, follicles are starting to grow, and this is when we need a calmness in our lives. So we need a calm Shen and the heart Shen, just to be calm, so that this lovely nurturing and growth can happen. Right. And then we hit around mid-cycle. This is your ovulation phase. Again, something that people have heard about, particularly if you've ever thought about getting pregnant or not getting pregnant. And now we're moving from that yin nurturing building phase into a yang phase. We need the yang energy now to thicken up that uterus lining, the Chong and the Ren to fill up properly and fully in preparation for conception. and for the follicle to grow and mature. After that, you've got the luteal phase. And this is the phase where yang continues to increase, yin is decreasing, and ovulation to menstruation is effectively the luteal phase. The follicle that was released is transformed into corpus luteum, ready to be sort of fertilized. And spleen chi, kidney chi are working really hard to build up that uterus lining. There's lots of really good energies going around in the body and aid in the production of progesterone, which is why quite a lot of women feel quite energized at this time. Yang is dominant. Kidney chi needs to be strong, and there's a lovely sort of strong, very energy focused stage. Now, every single one of those is to do with warming up this uterus, and we'll talk about cold in the uterus later. We're slightly obsessed with it in Chinese medicine to create this beautiful warm pillow for that embryo to nurture into, implant, and us to grow a baby. So warmth is really crucial at this stage. Now, whether you are trying for a baby or not, those 4 stages happen.
No choice. That's happening.
You've got no choice in that. So if any one of those stages are in balance, if there's any deficiencies or major excesses in any one of those stages, it can and will affect your periods and your fertility. But periods is what we're talking about today. So that's why I just wanted to explain that this is your period is not a standalone event. And so how we live our lives through the month and understanding those 4 phases.
Excuse me.
Oh gosh, are you okay?
So just can
have a massive impact on people's periods.
Yeah.
And so the organs, and they're the same organs that we talked about for menopause. It is the liver, it's the spleen, it's the kidneys, and it's the heart. They all play a really important role. So if any one of those are imbalanced, it can affect the periods. So if we just have a quick look at those 4.
Yeah.
So the spleen. So the spleen is so important because the production of chi and blood is dependent on the spleen. So when spleen chi is strong and flowing, then there's optimum blood. The spleen transforms food and drink from the stomach into chi and then distributes it throughout the body.
Right.
The liver is definitely involved here. It's so important to menstruation because it focuses on the smooth and free flowing of chi and blood. It stores the blood. So if the liver's imbalanced, then you get irregular, painful menstruation. And things like the Chong and the Ren meridians are all out of kilter as well. So that's another organ that needs to be in balance. Yes. Then you've got the kidneys. Now, the kidneys house our jing, our essence. They control bones, marrow, and the brain. And in Chinese medicine, it's marrow that produces blood and the essence that is vital for creating life, for ovulation, and for conception. So to say that that's not interlinked in all this would be crazy. It is. The kidney sends chi and essence straight to the uterus through the meridian pathways to help balance menstruation. So if kidneys are out, your periods are out. And then the last is the heart. Heart chi and heart blood are really have a huge impact on the uterus. And they make sure that if your chi, your heart chi and your heart blood is nourished and strong, then you have a nourished uterus.
Right.
So if any one of those, and you think, the heart's very controlling, very linked to our emotions. So if someone's had grief or stress or hasn't dealt with something from their past and they've got this disturbed shen, then everything else in their life might be perfect. All the doctors' tests have come back. There's absolutely nothing wrong with them, and yet their periods are awful. So in Chinese medicine, that's a fundamental difference of how we look at the female body, is we're not thinking symptoms. We're going right back to root causes. So when people who have hard periods, have periods that keep them in bed for 2 days, that, are bleeding far too heavily, when they come and see an acupuncturist, I think they're quite surprised that we are asking them questions about their childhood, about their sleep patterns, about everything else, as well as their period, because it's that holistic approach for me that I think is why acupuncture is so effective at helping people have normal, healthy periods.
in that case then, Claire, what does a healthy period look like?
Okay, great question. And I think a healthy period and a healthy menstrual cycle can be quite different for different people. But as a guide, a healthy menstrual cycle should be in length between 24 and 36 days. Bleeding should last for about 3 to 5 days. This idea of there being a 28-day cycle and people ovulating on day 14 is just not the case. I think less than 5% of the population have that pattern. It's crazy. So your blood flow during your period should be smooth. It's fine if you have a few small little clots, because as I explained earlier, it's the uterus lining and tissue as well as blood that's coming away. So that's also fine. But it should not impact on your daily life. You may have a bit of lower back pain. You might be slightly uncomfortable, but you shouldn't be in bed. You shouldn't be flooding. You shouldn't be having to change your life or plan your life around this period of bleeding. So anything outside of that isn't healthy. What you might get, and what is normal, is some slight disruption to your bowel movements. And one of the reasons of that is, if you remember, I talked about the prostaglandins that are released by the brain and then the uterus starts to contract. Well, because the bowel and the uterus are so close in the body, what can actually happen is that the bowel also starts to contract. So you can get a little bit of loose stools and a little bit of griping there. But again, it should be manageable. It shouldn't be absolutely high levels of discomfort and people not wanting to go to the toilet during those first few days of their menses cycle. So what isn't normal is a short or very long cycle. So anything shorter than 23 days or anything longer than 37 days isn't normal. In TCM, this is usually some sign of blood or chi deficiency and possibly even heat. But that's not to say that there's anything major to worry about. It's always sensible to go and get a check done with your GP, but actually sometimes because of life, our periods can change. So if you've just had a highly stressful situation, your periods can change. If you've had grief, your periods can change. If you are heading into any of the menopause transitional stages, particularly the perimenopause, you know, that stage, which can be for 10 years for some women, remember, and some women can their periods can get longer, they can get shorter, they can get heavier, they can get lighter. So, you know, what I always say to people is, if it's a major change that happens for more than 1 or 2 months, you need to go and get yourself checked out with possibly a scan. People with polycystic ovary syndrome, they often have shorter period cycles. So if you're aware that that's what you've got and you have shorter cycles, that's actually your normal. People who've got thyroid and pituitary imbalances, these can really affect period lengths, period heavinesses, and obviously endometriosis, pelvic inflammatory disease. These also affect women's cycle length. So just know what your normal is. If you have a medical history and you are sitting outside of those 23 to 37 days, you know, that's fine as long as you've had that checked. So length of cycle is good. And also the idea that you should come on your period every 28 days, every 30 days. Also give yourself a couple of days on either side. That is also fine. You know, we are not a clock. You know, yes. We are influenced by our life. So length. The second one we talk about is blood colour. And this is really important because if the colour is light or pale pink and the blood is quite thin and it's diluted, almost look like it's diluted somehow, then this is a deficiency pattern. From a Chinese perspective, this is deficiency. We see it usually as a spleen qi deficiency. The spleen has got several jobs to do, as we talked about earlier, but a key one relating to periods is that of ensuring that qi is passed from the stomach, turned into blood and qi. So if the spleen is weak, there just isn't enough blood around for you to have a healthy period.
I see.
If the colour is bright red, then that's also not normal. That's a sign of heat as well. If the colour is dark brown or just dark, then this is a sign that there's something, you can imagine, can't you? Something slow, something sluggish. The uterine blood is sluggish and the blood isn't flowing freely. There's some sort of liver qi stagnation. Do you remember we said that the liver stores the blood? So effectively, the uterus lining isn't shedding healthily enough because there's not enough free flow of qi and blood to have full healthy period. So I see a lot of clients who have this often will have PMS, tender breasts, irritability, feeling stressed. They're out of sorts. And then the last one, which is almost always fibroids or endometriosis, is the dark, really dark purple blood. And there's usually quite large clots with this.
Right.
And the pain here is, but as opposed to that dull ache that quite a lot of women experience, that's fine. This is a really sharp, debilitating, intense pain. So if you've got any of those three, you need to go and get yourself checked out for sure.
Definitely.
And then flow. And, you know, it is not, I have some people, women come to me and they have to change their sanitary wear every couple of hours. It's very normal for those first couple of days to be heavier and then it to get slightly lighter. What isn't normal is for you to having to change sanitary wear every 2 hours. If you have had to, when you wake up in the morning, you've got to, you know, you literally flood as you stand up. Anything like that is not normal. We want the flow to be steady, to be ease, and to gradually get lighter. But there needs to be a definite start and a definite end to a period. A period that drags on at the end with spotting is a sign of spleen qi deficiency. So that's another thing. So spotting before your period and after your period is spleen qi deficiency.
Wow.
What you yeah, I know. Everyone goes, oh, I do that. I do that. And you go, okay. So clots, as I said earlier, little small ones that are easy to pass are fine. What isn't fine is large congealed clots. Anything bigger than a 1 penny piece, any pain when clotting. Some people say, I can physically feel myself passing the clot. That is absolutely not normal. These are all signs of imbalances, and this is where acupuncture can really start looking at the organ that's involved in this to help you find that rebalance. It's holistic. So what we're not going to do is give you something to make you bleed lighter because you've got heavy periods, like perhaps in some cases traditional medicine, conventional medicine does, which, you know, as you know, I'm a huge fan of conventional medicine. I think the NHS is amazing. However, in this instance, I think Chinese medicine approach is just so much more effective at dealing with women's periods.
Definitely. It's funny because a few months ago, I think it was on social media. A lady had put on there, who knew that ibuprofen could slow down your periods and make you bleed less? So I thought, oh, because I do have really heavy periods, and what you're saying about the congealed clots, that's part of my period. So I tried it because I just couldn't take the pain anymore. And all right, I did. My flow was a lot less. I was only on for sort of 2.5 days. But my God, did I make up for it the next month? Wow.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. I think that sometimes it can work and sometimes we need a quick fix. Sometimes there's an event coming up and something, and you know, but anything that effectively puts a big plaster over a situation, particularly with periods, it just leads to that problem gets deeper, gets harder to fix, lasts for longer. There's absolutely no question that, you know, it's not women who come to me who've been on the contraceptive pill for 10 years because they had really, really heavy periods and now are struggling to get pregnant, or have got periods that mean that they can't go to work for 2 days of the month.
Yeah.
You know, or have got really difficult menopauses because they've had this suppressed issue for sometimes 20 or even 30 years. So we just need to get that balance back. Remember, you know, Chinese medicine, it's all about balance. It's all about opening up these meridians so that you have this free flow of qi and blood and things can move healthily.
This is a random question, but as you were talking about the spleen, one of my clients has come to my mind. What about if they haven't got a spleen? What about if the spleen's been removed?
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because of course you can have your gallbladder removed as well. But the
Yes.
gallbladder is the organ, and we can also work on the meridians. So the
Oh,
meridian is the whole channel.
I
And
see.
also we have got paired organs, so the spleen and the stomach. And so we can, so in Chinese medicine, people who have not got a particular organ have got, we can still treat them through other meridians and also through the extraordinary meridians as well.
Oh, interesting. That's so interesting. Sorry, proper off piece. Why then do some people have a lot worse periods than others?
Yeah, no, it feels unfair, doesn't it?
Yeah.
There's so many reasons. There's so many reasons. There's some evidence to say that it could be genetic.
Okay.
I think that is, for me, that feels a bit easy
Yeah.
as an excuse. I'm not going to lie. But when I see patients, I can honestly say that it's usually due to lifestyle, diet, exercise, sleep, medications. So let's have a look at sort of all the things. So first of all, weight. If you are seriously underweight or overweight, you will have issues with your periods. You will either have very light or no periods, or you can have very heavy periods. So a healthy BMI is really important for having a healthy period. Lifestyle, I think, is becoming the number one thing, because what we know is stress and overwork in particular have massive, massive impacts on the spleen and impacts on your periods. So physical and mental stress, quite simply, interrupts the flow of chi and blood. That's what it does. Overworking impacts the spleen, which, as you know, is all about the flow of blood. So if you are stressed, overworking, and exhausted, your body just simply doesn't have that extra energy, the chi and blood, to create a healthy menses. It just doesn't. So prolonged emotional stress, prolonged overworking causes spleen chi stagnation. So stagnation, things getting stuck, not flowing healthily, liver chi stagnation, and these are vital for a healthy menstrual cycle. Then you've got medical conditions, which, you know, we have to put in the conversation, but this is not, you know, this is not somebody's choice. Endometriosis, fibroids, thyroid issues, pituitary imbalances. These people often have some combination of chi and blood stagnation. For women with polycystic ovary syndrome, that's blood stagnation, chi deficiency in the spleen and the kidneys. So, and buildup of phlegm, which is something that we'll talk about later on as well. So those kind of medical conditions, a lot of women don't realise that actually acupuncture can be a fantastic alternative and work alongside conventional medicine to help reduce, relief symptoms. You know, there's some amazing evidence on fibroids being made smaller by Moxa, and I mean, there's some really exciting research out there. And so, particularly at endometriosis, and it feels right to talk about it because it's Endometriosis Awareness Month.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so what it is, this is where patches of the uterus lining, the endometrium, those tissues that are there actually grow outside of the uterus. So they actually grow on the ovaries, fallopian tubes, and sometimes even within the abdominal cavity. And because these tissues respond in exactly the same way as the hormones in the uterus do, they can bleed during a period and cause cramps and pain and scar tissue. So it's a really, really painful condition for women to have. It not only can it cause infertility, but actually it absolutely transforms women's periods. So in TCM, in Chinese medicine, we would see this as weak kidney essence. And then, so we would also then treat spleen chi, blood stagnation, heat. And so we can look at the actual root cause and help these women to lessen their symptoms. Yeah. We can't take away the endometrial tissue that has grown outside the uterus. We can lessen the symptoms, and we can also help slow down any further growth.
Okay. Wow.
Medication is another one. long-term use of any medication. We're not big fans of that in Chinese medicine anyway.
No.
But it causes damp. It causes imbalances within the organs, within the meridians. And again, it's this sticking plaster approach. Women who've been on contraception for 10 and 20 years, and then their cycle is just suppressed, and they don't. So when they want to come off it, or whether they feel they want to come off it for whatever reason that they're choosing, they come back to these periods that are sporadic, extremely heavy, extremely light, very painful, it bleeding in between the periods, which we call a midterm bleed. So that's another reason why women have bad periods. And then diet, it's an old thing, isn't it? But you are what you eat. If you are eating too much sugar, drinking too much alcohol, if you've got a poor diet, it is going to 100% impact your menstrual cycle.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Because I do wonder, like, I said this when I first started getting interested in TCM. At the time, I was on my 3rd implant. And I was kind of like thinking to myself, well, where does it all go? Because surely it's got to come out, because you don't really have periods on the implant for the first 2 years. You do get a little bit in the final year. But I was like, where does it all go? Surely that lining has got to come out somewhere.
Well, the lining doesn't get formed because they suppress the hormones that are released. And it does mean that women are able to have choices and live the life they want to lead without the fear of getting pregnant. So it's really important for women to have that choice. We just say to women, look, and often some women can take it, have it removed, and their periods go straight back to normal. If you're not that lucky, we can help you find that balance again.
I see. So you can bring yourself back into balance with acupuncture after contraception.
You really can. You really can. Acupuncture, diet, lifestyle, good sleep patterns. We have to work in a holistic way. I always say to my ladies, if you're thinking about wanting to start a family, and you are currently using any form of contraception, that is the pill or the coil, or like you say, the implant, you need a year without that to ensure we can get your cycle back in track to a healthy menstrual cycle so that you can conceive. Whereas women who come off it are then really surprised by the fact that it takes them a year to conceive, because actually we're spending a year putting their menstrual cycle back into a healthy, regulated flow. I think having the pill and having all these other contraceptions are really empowering for women, and I'm very pro women having choices. It's just, let's give them more information. So if they're wanting to enter a different part of their life's journey, either about to get married or perhaps even heading into menopause, we can help them find balance through that transition phase. And I think that's what I'd like people to understand, that a little bit more.
Okay. I was going to ask you a question then, but I'm not, because like we said in the initial chat, it's a whole other podcast, and maybe we do come on and do just contraception.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? I think it's so unique to so many people. I think that for some women, going on the pill transforms their lives. It allows them to live a life, and they're unaware of the power of acupuncture and how it can work holistically to help them. Some women really just want to make sure there is absolutely no chance that they get pregnant. And it's really important that women have got that choice as well. But I think I think that if women had more information about the contraception and that what can happen when you come off contraception, and maybe some of the things you need to know about the fact that your periods might not come back, or you might find it difficult conceiving, or that your problems might just return straight away, then again, it gives women's choice, doesn't it? And if they choose to stay on the pill, that's their choice. That's absolutely fantastic. And there's millions of women that do. But I wonder if there would be millions of women that did if they were aware of alternatives.
Yeah. This is the thing, isn't it?
It really is.
Okay.
But if it's not going to be made available for free, then people just simply can't afford it.
That's correct. This is the problem, isn't it, with everything?
It is. It's such a shame, but you know, we're working on it. We're working on it.
Yes, we are. Okay. Cool. Okay, so on that note then, like you were just talking about diet and lifestyle and sleep and everything else. This does sound like a simple question, but I'm sure it's not a simple answer. Is there anything that we can do to help ourselves through our cycles?
Yeah, 100%. We have the power within
Yes.
us. Absolutely. So your menstrual cycle is a feedback system between you and your hormones. It provides you with the insight into the health of your endocrine system and your balances throughout your body. That's what it effectively does. So your endocrine system is this fundamental, complex network of glands and organs. It uses hormones to control and coordinate your metabolism, your energy levels, reproduction, growth, and development, and also how you respond to injury, how you respond to stress, and your mood levels. So what I say to all my clients when they come with this is, right, let's start a diary. Let's find out what happens in each of your phases.
Yeah.
So do they crave sugar at certain times? Are they more tired? Are their sleep patterns disturbed when they're in the follicular phase? Are they more likely to have an amazing workout at the gym at a particular phase? And from that, what we start to do is glean what their cycle and the phases within it mean to them. So yeah, so each menstrual phase, we have different needs. So there's some phases where, you know, wherever possible, I'd say to women, look, this is your yin phase. You are nurturing. You're not somebody who should be stood on a stage or doing a huge presentation. Can you add this to your diary? Not that you're going to be a slave to it, but just to be a little bit kinder to yourself, to understand, well, actually, I know I sleep really badly over the ovulation period. So I'm going to give myself in my diary a little bit. I'm not going to arrange to go away on a crazy weekend. Or do you see, it's just that. So first of all, I get them to write things down and then they see what their patterns are. So it's about them having choices. It's not about not doing something because you're a bit tired because it's that stage of your cycle. That's not what this is about. This is about information. So you're just more aware of how you're going to react to things. So there's no question diet, stress, good sleep patterns are all things we can do to help ourselves and have a massive impact. So your diet, understanding that your body needs to eat different things at the different menstrual stages can really help reduce and relieve symptoms. So avoiding things like stimulants, making sure that you're reducing caffeine and alcohol, staying away from really refined sugars. So during the menstruation phase, if you think logically what is happening, well, you are losing fluids and you are losing blood. So we want to have foods that are going to replenish iron levels and replenish fluids. So things like grass-fed meats, eggs, greens like kale and broccoli. Anything with high vitamin C content at this period is fantastic. So beautiful strawberries, kiwis, melon, and things that are anti-inflammatory. So anything that can just help ease any sort of stagnation and any sort of inflammation that's there. So things like ginger, garlic, turmeric, they're all lovely, lovely things to eat during your bleeding phase.
Wow.
During the follicular phase, okay, remember this is this phase where we're building, aren't we? We're building all this energy up. We're trying to refill this uterus after it's completely shed. So let's have loads of protein, eat generous amounts of foods that have got B12 in. B12 is really important for your menses cycle. And anything, again, blood boosting, iron boosting greens. There's an awful lot of women with very bad period problems that often have iron deficiency. Then you've got ovulation. So we know ovulation, we want warmth. We want that really welcoming environment. Whether you're trying for a baby or not, it doesn't matter. This is what the body needs. So rice, oatmeal, beautiful bone broths, leeks, chicken, lamb is a really good choice at this. Warm, spicy foods, cloves. You can see what you're eating, can't you? You can feel that that feels right at that time.
Yeah.
And limit cold, raw foods. It's also around this time that if you're a wild swimmer, I say, maybe not this week, because that isn't going to help. Then you've got the luteal phase, and here is where most women find that they have increased sugar cravings.
Yeah.
Okay, and what you really don't want to eat is sugar. What you really, really need is slow release carbs so that your glucose levels stay really nice and level. Bone broth. Caffeine has been shown to reduce blood flow to the uterus. So,
Ooh.
yeah, it's emerging evidence. But so if you're wanting to conceive, I probably wouldn't be drinking caffeine at this stage. But if you're not, then, you know, in moderate amounts, that's fantastic. And avoiding alcohol, because that is going to affect your bleed without a shadow of a doubt. So there's some really nice things we can do to eat, simple things.
Yeah.
One of the people, if you are really a person that sugar craves and has the highs and lows at certain times of the month, there's an amazing lady called the Glucose Goddess. Absolutely follow her. She's just released her second book. She is brilliant.
Right.
Absolutely brilliant. So we'll put her in the comments.
Yeah.
Because the post that she does and her knowledge is absolutely fantastic, and it really does work. So anybody that's really struggling with that can get some amazing tips off her. So the next thing to look at is exercise. It is always better to be moving than not. We know that for any sort of life, but what we don't want you to do is to be doing, you know, lifting very heavy weights at the gym all the time. In fact, there's some evidence that says at ovulation, your hormones are really high. So actually you feel great and you feel very strong, but often that's when people can get injured.
Right.
So we say, even though you're feeling amazing, just be mindful of quite often people can create more injuries at that time. So whilst everyone's different, we need you to get to know your own bodies, and that's what a healthy period is going to be. A healthy menstrual cycle is you understanding what you need for your menses cycle. Basically, as a rule, when you are in that first half, so you're bleeding and you're building up that lovely uterus, you're more likely to want to do the more energetic, the more difficult, the more cardio or lift some weights, fine. In that second half, what we say is you probably want a gentler form of exercise.
It makes so much sense.
Walking, Tai Chi, but even when you are on your period and you are feeling dreadful, the evidence is huge that getting out and walking and gentle movement, Tai Chi, yoga, Qigong, will help. So movement is good. Movement is good. And also it encourages the flow of Qi and blood as well by moving. So we know that that helps. Sleep. Well, without sleep, we don't regenerate. In Chinese medicine, the Shen needs to go back into the heart at night to rejuvenate, to then the next day go out into the blood vessels. And so a good bedtime routine is massively important. And I know I find very few people that aren't aware of the fact that being on your mobile phone, having your mobile phone next to your bed, eating very late at night, all those things are not going to help you have a good night's sleep. But when I ask my ladies, tell me when you're waking up, the Chinese clock also correlates to certain organs. Yeah, so I know when I'm talking to my clients, if they're waking up, for example, between 1 and 3 on the Chinese clock, that's liver. So I know that there's something going on with the liver there. Likewise, if they're waking up between 5 and 7, it's the small intestines. So we just keep an eye on that for them as well, to help them understand that when they wake, the time that they wake can also be an indication of an imbalance.
Yeah.
You know, it's about just having a look at going to bed at the same time if you can. I mean, it's all a bit it's all a bit boring, really, but fundamental good night's sleep. You need 8 hours of good, healthy sleep. So that the main thing. So you're eating well, you're thinking about what you're eating at certain times of the cycle, you're exercising throughout the entire month, and thinking about what exercise choice you're making, and sleep. So they're really important. But the fundamental thing that you can do to help yourself is to understand how you feel, react, sleep at each of the different phases.
I think this diary keeping is very, very important, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, and also I think it's acknowledging how we feel, and we're not very good at that. And we also put up with things. The amount of women that come to me and go, oh, I thought it was really normal to, faint every month when I'm on my period. I thought it was really normal to have huge clots, and when I stood up after working at my desk, that I flood, or that I have to wear, multiple sanitary wear throughout the day to get me through. That isn't normal. It's not healthy, and it's not normal. And so for women to then sit down and go, okay, for me, often there'll be one phase within their cycle that's particularly imbalanced. And if we go back and start looking at that phase, okay, what is happening in the body here? Right, okay, so progesterone and estrogen are really, really high. What can we do as an acupuncture treatment to help her deal with that, so that that's smoothing out the organs that are related to that, as opposed to just treating the period symptom?
Wow.
We're going back, we're going at the cause and going, okay, there's an imbalance in the follicular phase. Why is there a shortened luteal phase? Why is that period so short? Because each of the stages also has, a healthy amount of time. So if someone has a very shortened time between ovulation and then starting their bleed, starting that menstrual phase, we need to look and go, well, why is that so short? If somebody's period is 8 or 10 days after ovulation, it's incredibly short time. They won't have had a full luteal phase. And so, it's all that as well. We look at the length of time that these things are going on for. And once you've got balance in all 4 of those phases, you tend to find that the periods gently and slowly get back to a position where women go, I had no idea you could have a period and still live a life.
Yeah. Because, like you say, some women, they are debilitated by it because it's so bad, isn't it? And I can I ask a question as well? This is totally. But I always thought my periods went round the moon. So when it's a full moon, I'm generally on. What's that all about?
Well, there's a lot of evidence that women are very, very connected to the celestial and the moon phases. So that's not that uncommon.
Right.
In fact, on a full moon, more babies are born than at any other time of the year. And in maternity wards, they actually put on extra staff in some hospitals because they know more babies are born at the full moon, and also the tide changes at the full moon. So we are all connected to this earth that we live on, and so that's not that daft for you to say I'm connected to the moon. It actually makes sense.
Okay, because I was getting quite worried, you see, because I was like, oh, well, last month I was on a full moon and now it's gone past the full moon and we're waiting on a new moon. But obviously what you said about the length of cycles now makes sense. It isn't a 28-day cycle. It can be anything from 27 to 35, was it that you said? So that's...
And that you might have had 5 years of your period being every 28 days, but then life changes, we change. So it might go to 29, especially when you're heading into perimenopause. They can change an awful lot. You can miss some people don't have them for 11 months and they go, yay, I'm going to be menopausal next month, because of course you become, the menopause starts 12 months after your last period. And then they have a period. And they're like, oh, okay, back to almost back to square one, which isn't the case. But yeah, so I think that's important. And if you keep a diary of how you've been feeling throughout, and any symptoms and signs that you've had, any bloating, any changes in your bowels, anything that's made you tearful, anything, that will also help you understand that as an individual, if you have a lot of stress, this is how it impacts on your menstrual cycle. You know, it might not be that it changes your period significantly. It might be at ovulation, you get really bloated and feel really emotional, you know, and it's that so you've got that information for yourself.
And just thinking there, like, so like, there's this kind of saying that, you know, women get a bit feisty around their period. Is that then because of the yang, the domination of the yang in our system?
Possibly, possibly, it can be liver chi stagnation can make us angry. So there's lots of different reasons why our emotions change at period time, at the menstruation time. And you know, there's some cultures where they have a red tent, and when women menstruate, you all go and live in this red tent together, and women look after women. And yeah, it's an amazing idea. I'm in. And so, you know, in some cultures, they send the women away in that yang phase to this beautiful, nurturing yin environment where they all support each other and nurture each other. So, you know, if you think about it, a woman's menstrual cycle has not changed since caveman days.
Yeah.
You think about the societal changes and the changes on women since that time period, and we will now see it's not a surprise that women struggle with periods, with fertility, with menopause. Of course it's not, because our physical body hasn't changed, and yet the world in which we live in is fundamentally different.
And I suppose the foods are totally different to what would be available back then. You know, they would eat with the cycle, with the seasons, wouldn't they? And they would eat what was available. But now we've got it all in Tesco whenever we want it. And really, that's not right.
So really, you make a really, really important point there. And in Chinese medicine, I mean, we're coming into spring now. It's such a fantastic time.
Yeah.
But it is about eating seasonally, you know, and being connected to that. It is about, you know, don't go to bed slightly earlier in the winter months, stay up later in the summer months. All those things matter. All those things, you know, living in. So, I mean, nowadays there are so many local businesses that are providing incredible local fruit and veg.
Yeah.
That actually you could do that rather than getting something that was shipped 5,000 miles across the ocean. You know, I think there's a trend. I think there's a massive trend towards that.
Yeah.
But anything that you can eat, if it's not got packaging on it, and you are aware of where it's come from, it's probably going to be significantly better for you than something that's been sat in a packet on a supermarket shelf for years.
Isn't that the truth?
Isn't it? I mean, you know, go to the butchers.
Yes.
Buy your food from the butchers, and when you walk in, there is some picture on the wall, or you say to the butcher, where did this lamb come from? Where did this chicken come from? And they go, that's so-and-so's farm in so-and-so. Up the road in our butchers, it literally has a picture of the animal and the name of the farm that it's come from.
Yeah.
You know, and likewise, go to your local fruit and veg place.
Yes, I used to love that as a kid, going to the grocery shop with my mum. You don't see it a lot anymore, do you?
No. So a diet that's rich in lots of different foods is also really important. I mean, the Zoe app and Tim Spector, who I think everybody knows about him, he's just an absolute genius when he talks about gut flora and your healthy microbiome in your gut. That's also something that's important for women to understand, is that, you know, if you've taken lots of medication, if you've had lots of antibiotics, if you've had lots of stress, the microbiome in your gut, which is a massive part of your immune system, will be absolutely depleted. And so having healthy foods to help your gut flora and help your microbiome, things like kimchi, kefir, eating a wide variety of foods, will also help you have a healthier menses cycle.
Interesting. Okay. So then let's get on to the actual acupuncture bit. What is the best acupuncture treatment to help with our menstrual cycle or issues? Sorry.
It's interesting, isn't it? Oh, well, as you know, there is not going to be one simple answer to this because in acupuncture, everybody's treated as an individual. Your symptoms are yours. So there is no real, okay, if you use these 6 points, you're going to solve people's problems. That doesn't exist. However, what might be helpful here is for us to break down some of the symptoms that people might be suffering with and what they mean from a Chinese medicine standpoint, and then how we treat. So, for example, liver qi stagnation. When we spoke about the liver earlier, it's that, you know, blood is cleansed and stored and distributed by the liver. So it's pivotal. So if your liver qi, your liver energy is stagnated and blocked, you're going to get symptoms like bloating, particularly around ovulation, tender breasts, irritability. People often can have painful periods. And so the other thing that people can get with liver qi stagnation is a sigh a lot. People tend to have oh, you know, oh, that kind of sighing a lot. That can be liver qi stagnation. So what we do here is we go, okay, there's a bank of symptoms here that indicate to me this person has got liver qi stagnation. So let's tonify and smooth the liver. And there's a point, basically liver 14, which is the front moo of the liver, which is fantastic because that spreads liver qi, invigorates blood and helps with clots being dispersed. So someone presenting with those symptoms, that would be an option for them. So if you've got spleen qi deficiency, so the spleen particularly manages the second half of your menstrual cycle. It manages the blood, but also, remember this, it transforms the food and drinks in the stomach into the qi and blood that then gets dispersed around the body. So for spleen qi deficiency, I think, okay, you've got low energy, sugar cravings, feeling cold, poor circulation, cold hands and feet, bowel movements can be quite loose, and sometimes spotting before or at the end of the bleeding menstruation phase. So here we want to tonify that spleen. We want to boost the spleen. We want to give it some more energy. So spleen 6. One of the things that I really like about spleen 6, and I do use it quite regularly, is this tonifies the spleen, the liver and the kidneys. So it's a great menstruation point. So some people might have a mixture of those symptoms as well, don't forget. So again, we can use those points to help. No one just turns up and tends to sit in one pattern.
I was going to say.
You might have a dominant pattern for sure, but people, you know, come with a mixture. And then you've got kidney yang deficiency. So kidney yang basically works with the spleen in that luteal phase. It supports progesterone and maintains your body temperature when you're ovulating. So we know yang is that warming. It's the kidney yang deficiency. People often have a pain, menstrual pain, that's much better for heat. These are people that tend to feel cold. They have longer menstrual cycles, sometimes very heavy or very light blood flow is a sign of this. Lower back pain, needing to go to the bathroom for urination regularly. These are always things that we think, okay, there's a kidney yang deficiency here. And again, you've got a couple of points that are great, kidney 13 and kidney 3. Fantastic for tonifying kidney. And actually, kidney 3 tonifies kidney yin and yang. So if you've got symptoms within both, perfect. So kidney yin deficiency is another really common one. Yeah. And the reason why this is important is because kidney yin controls the follicular phase when that egg is developing and the uterus lining needs nourishing. So women with kidney yin deficiency have lighter periods, light flows. They can get night sweats, deficient night sweats, and dizziness. They might also have missed periods, amenorrhea, because quite simply, there isn't enough kidney energy for there to be a healthy menses cycle.
I see.
And so we want to nourish the kidney yin and the essence.
Yeah.
And so in the extraordinary meridians, we've got Ren 4 for this. And Ren 4 is particularly good for this because not only does it nourish kidney yin, it strengthens the uterus. So that's a lovely point for a lot of women who present with those symptoms. Then you've got blood. I mean, there's quite a few blood patterns, and we don't need to go into all of them. You've got deficiency of blood. There's not enough blood. So here you've got irregular cycles, people who've got pale blood, people who are really tired, they're really low in energy. So we want to tonify blood. We want to tonify blood, the kidneys and the livers. Stomach 36, I think, is most people's go-to point for tonifying chi and blood in the body, which is great. Although if you have a patient with very low blood pressure, stomach 36 can lower blood pressure. So maybe not for that person. Then blood stasis. So this blood stagnation, the blood just isn't flowing. It's, it's not getting to where it needs to go. So here you have these irregular, painful periods. You have dark, clotty blood, mood swings. You can see, can't you? There's like this ebb and flow. Things aren't quite moving really well. So again, we just want to move blood. We want that blood stagnation to be moved. So you've got amazing liver points for this. Liver 3, which is a yuan source point, which is where original chi kind of pools, and spleen 10, which is the sea of blood. And so that's 2 great points. I mean, it's literally called the sea of blood. It's a great point for blood stagnation and for really, and then you've got blood heat. So this is an excess pattern, and often it can cause this reckless movement of blood. So women can experience maybe more than one period in a month, and they can be really heavy, or they can be really hot and thirsty and anxious. You can imagine the heat creates those kind of symptoms. So here we want to cool the blood. We want to regulate the periods. So liver 3 is another good point for this, because this clears heat. But I quite like large intestines 11 for this as well, because that's a brilliant heat clearing point. And then we talked very briefly, I mean, there's so many patterns. These are some of the most common ones, I would say. You remember I talked about that yang energy needing to warm the uterus, and how important it was for the warmth of uterus, particularly if you're trying to conceive. Well, cold in the uterus is also another really common pattern. Often it's actually caused by the kidney yang that we talked about before, that lack of warming in the kidneys. But here women tend to feel really cold. They have delayed cycles. So the treatment for this is we want to warm them up. But actually, for Chinese medicine, we want to what we call scatter the cold.
Okay.
And so Ren 2, another point just below the umbilicus, in between the umbilicus and the head of the pubic bone, which scatters cold, and is a really lovely one for boosting kidney yang. So there some, these are great points that are regularly used, that have got evidence behind them to help women find rebalance. So by using specific acupuncture points, acupuncture rebalances those organs. It moves blood where there's stagnation, it tonifies blood where there's not enough blood, and promotes that healthy flow of chi and blood, but also it nourishes all the organs, so that if any of the organs are deficient, and if any of the organs are in excess, we just bring them all back into balance, so that each of the 4 phases works, each of those run smoothly, and all of those help to create a healthy 3 to 5 day bleed every 28 to 36 days, 23 to 36 days, for women that aren't clotty, that don't impact on their life, that mean that they can live their life and still have a really healthy cycle.
Wow. It's incredible, because I'm sitting there thinking, well, I'm definitely liver stagnation then.
Yeah.
Wow. I wonder how many other women are going to listen to this and go, oh my God. Because, you just don't, until I got into this world, I just wouldn't have thought that my liver and my spleen had anything to do with my menstrual cycle, because you just think that's the womb and it just does its thing.
And a lot of that is about that education, isn't it? That education piece where it's just, you're just told the uterus lining sheds away. It's almost like it works in isolation to the rest of the body, and that's what creates your period.
Exactly. Bonkers. Right. Okay. So getting on to the latest stage in our life. So when would we expect things to change? Because you said that periods change all throughout our lives. So is there any prominent times that maybe we would change and that's natural?
I think there are definite do you remember last time we talked about the 7-year cycle for
Yes.
women and different things happen? So there's no question that around the age of 14, we start our periods. And so that's a huge change and time of change for a woman. And then every 7 years, there's in the Chinese beliefs is that there is another change. For most women, there will be a significant change, provided that you're not taking contraception and everything's been sort of changed medically, that you will see a big change after you've had a baby.
Right.
Often women's periods can be really different after that. And then any time from the age of 40, early 40s onwards, as you enter that sort of perimenopause stage. And so what we always say to the women, I think people want to know, how quickly are you going to fix me, is another big question that you get asked. So changing our lives, something that's been happening to you for 20 or 30 years is going to take some time for your acupuncturist to help you put you back in balance.
Mm-hmm.
So as I've said to you earlier, if you've been on contraception, it can take a year for your balance to come back with your acupuncturist. So as a guide, we say to people, if you are recognizing what we've just talked about now, find an acupuncturist. And again, in Total Therapy, we've got an amazing network of people that have been trained and come once a week for a couple of cycles. That gives us enough time to work with you in that holistic way as well, where we get your diary out and we say, okay, so where are you? Right, so you understand now you're in the luteal phase. How are you feeling? How's your sleep? How's your bowel movements? How's your diet? And so it can take time. I do have some women that are really lucky, and within 4 to 6 weeks, everything seems to have gone back into balance. But I think that setting people's expectation, it's a journey.
Yes.
It takes months. But once you're back in balance, unless you do have a major life trauma or something significant happens, you now have got your life back.
I see. Wow. It's crazy, isn't it? It is.
Yeah,
amazing.
Chinese medicine's always about bringing back homeostasis.
Yeah.
Balance back to a woman. So if you suffer with heavy periods, if you have a teenager at home that for a few days each and every month can't go to school, if you have got heavy periods, if you are fearful about going out sometimes because you think you're going to leak and flood everywhere, it's not normal, and you can get balance. Provided there's no major underlying medical issues, acupuncture will help you find that balance.
Yeah. Because I did always wonder. I think people are going to laugh at me now, but I will kind of watch Emmerdale, right? So, and there's a young teenager in there, and she's going through all of this at the moment. She's really got bad mood swings. It's really heavy. She's dreading her periods every month, and they've put her onto the pill, the contraceptive pill. And I kind of thought, well, why are they doing that? Like, why are they like suppressing the flow of her cycle at such a young age? But I suppose the reason why they do that is because they know that it can slow down the bleeding, so it can give her a bit of relief. But surely that's going to upset the balance in the long run, isn't it?
Well, the answer to that is, for some women, yes, and for some women, no. But could they possibly have looked at acupuncture or other therapies before that? Maybe, but not everybody is aware, are they? That's why we need to do podcasts like this. Because not everybody is aware that there are alternatives.
Yeah. And this is why this is so powerful. Oh my goodness. I feel like I've learned so much today. I'm so lucky that I get to listen to this over and over again because I can take it in. But this is fantastic, Claire. Thank you so much for all your time today. I honestly, I could talk to you all the time. So I'm thinking, I speak to the powers that be, and we do a women's health sort of spin-off thing. Would you be up for coming on and talking about contraception? And also, as you were talking, I was thinking about the polycystic ovaries, endometriosis, PMDD, which is something that I've learned over the last couple of weeks that I didn't even know existed. Would you be up for doing that?
Absolutely. And, you know, we can talk about as well things like migraines that come along with menstruation. There's all sorts of things that women's health concerns that people suffer with that acupuncture is absolutely fantastic at treating. And that is what my business is. That's what I specialize in, women's health and rebalancing women.
Thank you so much. And girls, get right in your diaries, learn your body. That I think I'm actually going to do it. You could bring out over like a mensy journal sort of thing. Couldn't you? It's not a bad idea. But thank you so much for your time today, Claire. This has been awesome and really educational. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you very much for having me back. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Take care, Claire, and we will definitely hear from you again.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye. Bye.